got out of a briefing on the crisis in Afghanistan. And also Nicole Malliotakis, Republican from New York, also on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and attended that briefing as well. Thank you so very much. Congressman McCaul, you have the unique position on your schedule today to try to take efforts on the Hill bipartisan. I'll get to that in a moment, but I want to come to you first because I know you're going to have to exit us to go there. First of all, your top line thoughts on what we just learned on this day from the Pentagon.
Well, there's been a lot of confusion. We need clarity. We need the truth. I think there's been a lack of planning coordination that led to the culmination of what you're seeing on television. Right now, the IC warned us all summer long that this is going to happen, and the White House, politicos, and the president chose to ignore those dire warnings about what was going to happen. Now it's a mad scramble at the airport. We're getting reports on the ground ourselves because my committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee, is a clearinghouse for thousands of requests for these SIV applicants for American citizens. And now with the president deciding that August 31st is the date where the military is going to be completely out. I always say there's going to be blood on his hands. People are going to die as a result of this decision. And it's up to Congress now to lead to make sure we get all those Americans trapped in Afghanistan and the interpreters that Michael Waltz worked with out of that country.
You know, Congressman Waltz, I want to remind everybody of your service. You're the first Green Beret to ever be elected to Congress. And why do I say that? Because we saw GOP congressmen gather yesterday, and we were brought to tears during that live coverage by some of what you told us. What is it that you're watching the Pentagon do right now that has you up awake at night at all hours, just worried that this is going which way? Your thoughts?
Well, there's just such an ongoing disconnect, Harris, between the happy talk that we're seeing out of the White House, from political appointees, from the president himself, from Kirby, that things are fine and dandy. They may be a little bumpy, but they're going as planned. And then what our own staffs and offices are seeing on the ground. We've had to go operational out of the United States Congress, talking to airport managers, gate guards, helping American citizens avoid Taliban checkpoints. Just before coming here, one of my team told me that an SIV applicant with visa in hand had their phones taken from them and smashed to the ground by the Taliban and told to turn around. The reason we're having to go operational, the reason retired special forces officers and intelligence officials are taking matters into their own hands is because it's not going well, because of such a lack of leadership and clarity from this administration that we're having to do whatever it takes to get Americans out and to save those that stood with us. But we're on the cusp, Harris, of having the biggest mass hostage situation in American history. It's going to make 1979 in Tehran look like a sleepover, because you're going to have thousands of Americans left behind that the Taliban will then have for leverage when they want international recognition, they want money, they want economic assistance, and they've got a gun to the head of American citizens because Joe Biden left them. The Pentagon has been clear to us they could stay and they could get them out. Now, you have to weigh that. There's an ongoing terrorist risk to the folks there, but Americans don't leave Americans behind, period.
But there's an ongoing terrorist risk right here on American soil. I mean,
that's right.
Congressman McCaul, you're if you want to say, one of your specialty areas is protecting the homeland and the American people. And we have a porous border situation going on right now. So that really complicates things. I want to get to Congresswoman Malliotakis on this part of it. Senator Lindsey Graham tore into President Biden's handling of the crisis and demanded he be held accountable. Let's watch, and Congresswoman Malliotakis, I'll get your response.
It's the most dishonorable thing a commander-in-chief has done. He should be impeached. This is dereliction of duty by the commander-in-chief. This makes it harder to fight future wars. Who's going to help us in the future after we abandon our friends in Afghanistan who fought bravely? And the likelihood of a 9/11 is through the roof now because Al-Qaeda and ISIS are coming after us. If you believe we left Afghanistan, we've ended the war between the U.S. and radical Islam, you're a fool.
Well, they're trying to sell it like everything's going to be okay. You heard the two congressmen saying that. What is the truth, Congresswoman Malliotakis?
Well, we will absolutely be having hearings and getting to the bottom of this, and there needs to be accountability. Right now, the members of Congress are very focused on helping every American be repatriated and returned safely. When you look at the stats, less than 10%, and the percentage keeps getting lower and lower of Americans that are being evacuated as a number of the overall figures that were being provided. Last I checked, the Pentagon just said 4,400, but there have been 58,000 that the United States have evacuated. So there's about 6,500 at least Americans still remaining, and there's no way you're going to get them out by August 31st. So let's stop the stampedes, let's stop putting people in danger, and let's be clear with the Taliban that we are going to not leave. We're not playing Mother May I with the Taliban. We're going to stay until we get every American and our Afghan partners who have put their life on the line helping American troops as interpreters and in other capacities over the years. Right now, we're assisting people who have worked with U.S. aid, that have worked as interpreters, just as my colleagues Waltz and McCall have. That's number one. Number two, I am concerned about the risk of another attack. As was mentioned, 5,000 individuals were just released from a prison by the Taliban, including ISIS fighters, Al-Qaeda. We have open borders, just people streaming over our border, and there have already been people in the last several months who have been on the FBI terrorist watch list. So there is a grave concern here, coupled with, by the way, defunding the police and reducing tools for our law enforcement in cities all across America. This is a recipe for disaster.
So Congressman McCall, two things for you. You just came out of a briefing, and we're hearing that they're taking, and reporting, obviously, because we can confirm it, they're taking American troops out of there because you've got to start to move people if your deadline is the 31st, less than a week away now. And we rescued outside the gates of the airport 20, but we sent home 400 or so troops. What did you learn about how many are going to be left behind to fight their way out? Because it certainly looks like somebody's going to have to protect us with our last few people off the ground.
Well, that's right. And as Michael knows, being a Green Beret, it takes time to retrograde. So we have 6 days left. Most of that's going to be devoted to retrograding 6,000 troops getting out of country, and very little time to get the Americans left there out, the interpreters processing them out. We're hearing horror stories of the Taliban. They have a perimeter around the airport controlling the checkpoints. And when they see American citizens, they get through. But it's the Afghan interpreters. When they see Afghans, they view them with high suspicion. We heard horror stories of Afghan interpreters and their families being sent back home and being decapitated in front of the interpreter, and then the interpreter himself is decapitated. This is real stuff on the ground right now. It's horrific, and I blame the president for this happening. And lastly, I chaired Homeland Security for 3 terms, term limited, but I've seen the threat coming out of the region, external operations. We're going back to pre-9/11 now. We're going to see that happen again, and with a wide open border, and we had a terrorist watch list, caught at the border. That's a real threat to the homeland.
Congressman McCall, Waltz, and Congresswoman Malliotakis, forgive me, I've got to pull away. The minority leader of the House is speaking now.